Well, welcome everybody to Sourdough 101. And tonight, hopefully, you're going to have a good time. We're going to learn a little bit and we're going to make a basic, kind of a beginner loaf of bread. And I know that well, raise your hand if you have made sourdough already. You already know what you're doing a little bit. We got a few, I know. Okay, that's good. Um, you do notice, you new guys, you notice that people do come back because they're wanting it's kind of like a journey. So I want to prep you in understanding that your first loaf of sourdough isn't probably going to be the greatest in the world, but it will be edible. At least right when it comes out of the oven, it'll be definitely edible. After that, it could stay good for a couple days, but sometimes you'll get better. Let's just say that. And I'm finding my loaves are getting better and better. My journey with sourdough has only been maybe since last conference, so April or May or so I started, and I'm just amazed at how I can do them pretty consistently now, and they're consistently really, really, really good. So for the hurricane, I'm actually going to use my loaf that we make tonight. I'm going to split it into two tomorrow. I'm going to make two nice big pizzas. Actually, I have so much mother or starter right now that I might actually do a double batch tonight and do a bread and two pizzas. We'll see. But that's probably not really good for my health. So we won't do that. But anyway, so let's get rolling. So tonight, I really think it's important that for you guys that we understand why we would make sourdough bread. I know bread kind of gets a bad rap, and and a lot of times people are like, "Oh man, bread is bad, and it's carbs, and it's gonna make you fat, and it's gluten, and all this stuff." But the bottom line is most of us eat bread anyway, most of the time, not most of the time, but occasionally at least, even the healthiest people. And the good thing is that sourdough is actually a healthier form of bread. So it's going to be a better option for you. All right. So, and some facts. Hold on, I gotta get my dog a treat or he won't stop whining the whole time. Come on, Hurley. There you go. You be a good boy. No, I'll take a picture, you guys. Now go. Go. Okay. So actually, in addition to just tasting awesome, it's really about our gut and gut health. And luckily, we have Dr. Rachel on. She's a naturopathic doctor, a physician. She's been working in that area for a long time, I think like 20 years or something. And 24 years. So she knows her stuff and she's going to help us understand a little bit as we go along. I'll turn it over to you in a little bit. But for now, let's just talk about the basics of gut health. And something that's really interesting is you hear more and more about gut health nowadays, and doctors are kind of getting into it. And I think there's a lot of research going on. And I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg of understanding of how our bodies can really heal themselves or at least prevent disease if we keep them in a good state of health. Um, and it turns out that 70% of our immune system it originates in our gut. And 90% of our serotonin, which is like our happy hormone, is made in our gut, and only 10% is actually made in our brain. 80% of the food, you probably already know this because I see a lot of healthy people I know on here, but 80% of the food that we make or that we eat today, the stuff you buy at the grocery store, is a type of food that didn't even really exist about 100 or 150 years ago, before this revolution, this industrial revolution, this population boom in the world, where now we have made and packaged food and there's food scientists, and it's just not good for us. And all that has had a detrimental effect on our good bacteria in our health and our gut, rather. That's how it works. We have all this bacteria in there that creates this little microbiome. And if it's good, it's really good for your health. It's good for your immune system. It's good for your bowel movement. It's good for everything. It's just really good for you. So we want to try to improve our gut health. Okay, so ways we can do that. Um, Now, this event is sponsored by Juice Plus, and we are a healthy community of like-minded people that are really excited about making changes to get more and more healthy. Little simple changes, but yeah, it always tends to be focused around
Juice Plus, great.
around fruits and vegetables and eating more plants and things like that. It's really, really important. So That is actually the best way you can improve your gut health is by eating fruits and vegetables, eating the rainbow of fruits and vegetables, lots and lots of plants, just trying to get more plants into your diet. The more you can get, the better. For instance, when we went to the grocery store, because I almost didn't have flour for this event because I was playing last minute golf before a hurricane, and I was like, oh crap, I don't have flour. So I go to the grocery store. Of course, if you've been, I guess for winter storms, you guys get it up north too. Like I'm sure the grocery stores get empty and stuff. Well, the potato chip aisle is completely empty. Luckily, there was plenty of flour, so I got it. But my hurricane prep looks like this. I was getting ready today by trimming my tower gardens, getting ready to make some pesto tomorrow. We're gonna make pesto pizza with this dough we're making. But having lots and lots and lots of those fruits and vegetables, it decreases inflammation. It's anti-cancer in the properties. It feeds the good bacteria in our gut, and it keeps our body alkaline. And that's the way we want it. Another great way to work on our microbiome is by eating fiber-rich foods. Okay, fiber is like a whisk broom that cleans out your gut. And we don't need to talk about poop. Nobody likes talking about poop unless they can't poop. Then you want to talk about poop, and you want to know, hey, how do I start pooping? Because it's a problem, okay? But it's not a problem if you're eating lots of plants and having lots of fiber, and then that cleans you out. It cleans out your gut, and it helps with the good bacteria, okay? And of course, the best fiber-rich foods we can eat are plants. So how many plants should we eat? How many fruits and vegetables should we eat? Well, I'm actually going to turn it over to our naturopathic physician, Dr. Rachel. Go ahead and unmute Rachel, and I should be showing the speaker. Sorry on the recording.
And everybody that maybe everybody that's like needs to mute their line because I think we're having some interruption. But hello, everybody.
I'll do them.
And so tell all my group, say hello, everybody. We have a big group, about 14 people here, but I am so grateful that I have learned about the power of living food through a journey, which took me about 24 years in the journey of learning the power of the healing power of fruits and vegetables and plants. And I really learned it in a hard way. My husband got cancer at a young age and never knew he really was sick. He looked great. It felt great. And then we started learning about the power of, the body to heal through plants and fiber, which is now we're knowing more about the gut microbiome. My husband had cancer, like I said, and we started juicing fruits and vegetables to get them. And we realized that it was really complicated to be long-term sustainable. We did it for about a year, and somebody shared with us a juicing alternative with a fraction of the cost, something that we all know about as Juice Plus. And it was really attractive to me because I was wanting to get more vine-ripened fruits and vegetables. I wanted a variety. I wanted to not have to throw out half the fiber when we juiced. We only got the liquid part. We had a lot of sugar. We wanted to have fiber added. And so we started juicing, and it changed so much within our whole family. And my husband was able to battle strong his cancer. He was able to get from a 6-month, extension. He got a 6 month what he was given to live. He got 8 extra years with nearly optimal health. And we learned that food gives the edge on life, and it helped us to really learn through him, the power of living food. And then for our whole family, it was an armored seatbelt. It was a simple fill in the guilt gap when our kids would go to school. For now, been on it for 22 years. I've only been to well visits. Can you imagine how much money I saved? I have only been to well visits just for well checkups. And my kids, they have grown up with a nutritional seatbelt and raising their kids strong with this support as well. And I got involved into the business because the mission meant so much to me that I was able to grow into this after my husband passed away and rose up to a leader of the company. And my passion is help others to simplify nutrition and to really grow strong income to support things that I went through, whether it's a death or a divorce or a downsize or especially lost ability to be who we're supposed to be. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. I appreciate you sharing with us tonight. And Rachel's going to be making some bread too. So let's get this rolling, guys. All right. So let me get my stuff back here. Okay. All right. So the super hack is our Juice Plus, which we have gummies and capsules. Of course, our family takes it too. That is our hack to make sure we're flooding our bodies with fruits and vegetables. And just having a healthy lifestyle is really important, guys. But let's stick to food for tonight. And the next thing we're going to talk about is fermented food. Okay, so fermented foods are types of food that have obviously undergone fermentation. That's the process where sugars are broken down by yeast or bacteria, and that heals and seals the gut. So that same process, the same process we use when we make beer or wine, it's where those bacteria are eating the starches or the sugars, and that creates a byproduct, which is alcohol. So be careful if you have your mother sitting out on the counter too much, don't let your kids drink that liquid on the top. It's probably alcohol. But some examples of fermented foods are, of course, our beloved sourdough, which we're working on tonight. Other ones could be kombucha, kimchi, kefir, sauerkraut, miso, bone broth, yogurt. Keep in mind that yogurt does have dairy, which causes inflammation, so some people avoid that. But sourdough is the one we're going to focus on. The benefits of sourdough is that it's rich in vitamins. It's a great probiotic. It aids in digestion. It's higher in fiber and protein than regular bread. It's easier to digest than regular bread because you have, and it's lower in sugar because you have these bacteria that are eating the sugars. It's eating the gluten. It's eating those starches. So it ends up being lower and easier for your body to digest. And a lot of times diabetics and even people that are sensitive to gluten can tolerate this bread. So I'm no doctor. I can't tell you what to do about that, but just keep that in mind. If you're somebody that might test your blood sugars or something, I'd be curious if you tested after sourdough and see if maybe it didn't spike as much as you thought. Okay, so let's keep moving. We're actually going to move into making some bread now, guys. So we are going to be using these instructions that if you got your starter from me, it came with these instructions. If not, that's okay. We're going to follow along. I hope you get a copy of this from somebody. But we're going to start on the side that says sourdough instruction. And we have a little bit more education. I mean, you can take the teacher out of the school, but I guess you can't take the school out of the teacher. I don't know. Here we go. So let's talk about some terminology. Okay, so you guys have been, from what I've seen, most people are confused by all this talk about mothers and starters. And it's like, what the heck are we talking about? Well, let's just keep it in mind that basically the mother and the starter are kind of one and the same. Hold on, I'm trying to get a double share here. I can do this. I'm trying a new thing. Okay, think this might help some people. Last time I did this workshop, when I did the overhead view, they kind of went nuts. They loved it. So we're going to do it again. Okay. All right. So you have your mother. All right. It should look something like this. And a mother is just this little bit of bread almost. You know, it's just water and flour, and that mother that's been passed down through the ages. Mine is traced back to San Francisco, 1950 something, and there's some you can order on Amazon that are hundreds of years old. But to be honest with you, all this bacteria in the air of your home and the water that you put in there and the flour, it all kind of contributes to your starter. So it kind of becomes unique to your own special place. That's why pizza tastes different in New York City because it's different water, it's different, it's just different, you know, it's different. So this is the mother. The mother is what we're going to keep. Okay, we're going to keep a little bit of this mother. We're going to keep it alive. You're going to keep it on your counter. You're going to keep it in the refrigerator, however you want to store it. But that's going to go on and on. You don't want to use all of your starter tonight. You want to save some so it becomes the mother. Now, the mother is the same exact thing as the start. Okay. For instance, if I take this, if I say it's my mother, and I pour it into a little jar and I start feeding that to make bread, well, that's now a starter or our start. Why do we call it a start? Because it's what we're going to use to start a batch of dough. So it's the start of our bread loaf. Okay. So that's the deal on that. So the start is what you use to make a loaf of bread. It's poured from your mother, and I'm reading right from the page. Poured into a pint jar, approximately a quarter cup or 1 inch from the bottom. And you guys all did this, unless you're at Rachel's house. Then she did this for you, but you're going to do it when you go home. So when you get home, you're going to feed and stir a quarter cup of flour and a quarter cup of water into this. Then you're going to stir it up, and you're going to cover it loosely, either with you can put like a coffee filter on here, or I have a loose plastic lid that doesn't seal the air. It's not tight. You never want to seal this up because there's going to be pressure building on the inside. That's how we carbonate beer naturally when we homebrew. So you don't want to do that, because then you'll have like exploding mother, and that would be bad. Okay. So let's see, I'm on to the third terminology, feeding. The typical feeding is a quarter cup of bread flour or all-purpose flour. I am currently using all-purpose, the King Arthur's brand. I'm finding that all-purpose flour has a little bit less gluten, and I personally prefer it to the bread flour, which has about 1% higher gluten, and that makes it a little more stretchy and chewy, which is a great bread, but I just want to go for the lightest possible loaf, and that's my preference. But bread flour works great, and so does all-purpose unbleached flour. So the feeding, the typical you can feed her twice. Okay, so when you feed the start or a mother, it should be about the consistency of thick pancake batter. You can see that mine it kind of flows inside this jar, but it doesn't pour right out. I can't turn it upside down or anything, but it's thick, and I can see bubbles and stretches in there. If you leave that out on the counter, remember you got to feed it once a day. Okay, otherwise it's going to get a little nasty. You can feed it twice or even 3 times a day to give a little extra kick if you want to build it up and get it really strong before you bake. Okay, I took mine out of the refrigerator. I have a much larger jar I keep for my mother, and I poured about this much into this yesterday. I fed it last night, and I fed it twice today, and now I have more than I need for this. I can make 2 loaves off of this easily. Moving on to discard. Well, let me just say also, if you're not going to make bread regularly, you're going to want to store this in the refrigerator. Once it's stored in the refrigerator, you only have to feed it like once every week or once every 2 weeks or so. Okay, you'll take it out, you'll let it heat up to room temperature, and then you'll mix in the flour and water, and then you just put it back in the refrigerator, and it's happy. It'll slowly eat some fresh food, I guess. And it works really well. When you're ready to make bread, you take it out, you let it heat up again to room temperature, you pour it off into another jar, and then you feed that, and you feed your mother. You put your mother back in storage, and then you proceed to feed this for 2 or 3 feedings before you bake bread. All right, so we're on to the next terminology, which is discard. Discard is what you will have extra. Like, for instance, if I was going to make bread and I wasn't like the crazy bread guy, my wife calls me Sourdough now, or sometimes if she's mad, she might call me Doughboy. This is I'm only going to need so much to make this bread, and I'm going to have extra. And the extra is called discard. I discard my discard. I know that there's some of you out there that that's a challenge for some reason. You can't throw things away. And I know people that have jars and jars and jars in their refrigerator. There's no reason to do that. But when you're done with this event, you are going to get a text message from me if you signed up for my, if you've been getting reminders from me, you're going to get another one. If not, Rachel will get the reminder if you're at her event, and she can send you to this special thing. It's like a little board that is going to show you, give you links. It'll give you the recipe for this bread. It'll give you other recipes, like tons of recipes. It'll give you a link to a Facebook group you can join where there's 1,000 other crazy bread people that are making stuff, and they make up recipes. They're making crackers and pizza dough and all kinds of stuff right from the discard instead of throwing it away. So,
hey, Doug, I have one quick question.
Yeah, go ahead. I got it. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of our participants. This is my mother that I've been following the directions. And I thought to understand, like this morning was my last day to feed it. And then I got a message saying to feed it 4 hours before, but I didn't pour any off.
That's okay.
It's the original jar of feeding.
Yeah, don't worry. It's going to be fine.
Okay. So just
everything's going to be fine. I'm going to emphasize all the things that really matter. And now I will say this, you'll learn over time to get better at making bread, and you will learn that if you if the reason why I say feed it 4 hours before you start, you'll notice when you fed it this morning, let's say there was this up to this line, it would probably like double in size. But by the time it's tonight, it probably goes back down in size. So now when you make your bread, that bacteria, which kind of went dormant, is going to have to say, oh, here we go. I guess we can eat. Hey, buddy, we can eat. And then they all start waking up and feeding. If you make your bread when it's at that point of highest rising, then they're already hungry. It's like a feeding frenzy of sharks. Then you make your bread and it gets a lot more puffy. Okay. But it's okay because over time, you're going to get better. But also on this loaf, as long as you don't rush the process, it's going to be just fine. I promise. Okay. All right. So the next term, we're actually going to do some of this later. It's called tug and tuck. And that's the action of tugging or pulling your dough from the side and tucking it back into the middle. Then you turn your bowl and you do it again. And you take this action all the way around the whole bowl. And we're going to do it like about 5 times around. And the more you tug and tuck, the more your bread is going to taste sour, the more fluffy it's going to get. And the bottom line is this, you'll see this in the recipe at some point where you want to do like 4 to 5 sessions of this tugging and tucking. And there has to be like 30 to 60 minutes in between in each session. So you're going to start to see that there is a timeline on this whole bread thing. And but I'm also going to have some tips at the end that will help you to fit it into your life. You don't have to like quit your job to make bread or anything, okay? Don't worry, it's going to be fine. Our ancestors have done this for thousands of years. All right, we are on the next side now. We are actually at the part that is called making bread. So that's super exciting. So from this point on, I'm going to literally read from the instructions because I don't want there to be any confusion or anything like that. So it says here, if you want to make bread and your mother is in the fridge, take her out and bring her to room temperature, which takes about 3 to 4 hours. Step 1, pour some mother into a pint jar. That's what we did for our little start thing. Or Rachel did it for you. And okay, pour it into a quart jar about 1 inch up from the bottom. This is now called your start. Step 2, feed both your start and your mother. By the way, we've already done all these, right? And a 1/4 cup flour and a 1/4 cup of water. Stir them both and get about a consistency of thick pancake batter. Leave your mother on the counter to be fed daily. You guys already know this already, so we're going to skip the rest of that one. Step 3, which we already did today, rise. Your start will need to rise usually 3 to 4 hours, but can take longer if your house is cold. Now we get to the most exciting part. Step 4, mixing your bread. Okay, so once your start has risen, mix your start with water, salt, and flour using a large spoon or Dutch whisk. By the way, I heard Dutch whisk is awesome. I want to get one, but I don't have one yet. You may need more or less water. I wouldn't mind if, I think Melissa is one of the ones that had trouble with the dough being too like watery or something. So Melissa, did you end up using less than 1.5 cups nowadays, or what have you settled on?
I did. I think oh gosh, I don't know. I made that loaf last weekend and you told me it was the best loaf. I definitely used less water.
Okay.
I'm going to use less today because you can see something's up with my starter. You can see how liquidy it is. I'm not sure
okay.
what, but yeah,
okay, so
it's really, really warm. So I'm going to use some less water.
Okay. I found that 1.5, so the recipe calls for 1.5 to 2 cups of water. I would encourage you guys to start with 1.5 today and then mix in the 4 cups of flour like it says. And then we can assess, you can show me your screen or on screen, whether it's too thick or too thin or whatever. So I always start by putting the start into the bowl first. And it says, how much does it say we're even supposed to use? I don't even know. I guess it assumes you're going to use your whole start. I don't quite use it all because I tend to feed a lot, but I'd say I'm up to using about a 1/2 cup of start these days. It looks about like this in this bowl. Approximately 1/4 to a 1/2 cup of starter. I'm liking what happens when I use a lot. Let me just say that. And then we're going to go next with our water and then our salt, and we're just going to kind of combine all of those. So I'm going to go 1.5 cups of water. And at this point, you guys can unmute if you get confused or have any questions.
Okay, Doug. I'm a little confused.
Go ahead, Evie.
It's Evie. Okay, so let me give you my video. So I have the mother that I've been working on. So am I supposed to take 1/4 of this and put it in this?
So you have the mother you've been building?
Yes.
Okay, so what I tend to do, at this point, if I were you, I would not pour it into a separate thing. I would just pour it right into the bowl like I did.
Okay, and that's like 1/4, you said?
Yeah, let's go a little more. Let's get a little heavy-handed there. Like a good bartender. Let's go a half cup.
Okay. Aren't bakers supposed to measure?
Well, you know, I never called myself a baker. I think we have a good bartender on here. We got Aaron Hetrick, and if he's measuring, I'm not sure he's a good bartender. And you know, you want to put that, you know how they do that shot, and then they got that little extra, and it's like, yeah, that's what we should do with our starters. You can't go wrong.
Okay, so I have that in the bowl now. And then the mother I put in the refrigerator?
Depends. Are you going to make bread again tomorrow?
No.
Okay, I'd put it in the refrigerator then.
And
Yeah.
is that where I put the coffee filter on it?
Yeah, put a coffee filter over the top, and then you can put one of those rings or just no
Yep.
ring.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Put it in the
Don't
fridge.
forget your salt, guys. I forgot my salt once, and trust me, you don't want to eat bread with no salt. Doesn't work. So we have a full
Now I'm adding
tablespoon.
flour.
No, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do the salt first because I want to get it all distributed evenly into the flour. So I always do the flour. I'm sorry. I do the mother or the starter, then the water, then the salt. That's just, if you know me, I have to have like little systems. Otherwise, I make big mistakes. So I always keep it the same. And I always taste mine. And it should taste like you're worse than drinking seawater. That's how I remember I put the salt in.
Excuse me, how much salt do we use?
1 tablespoon.
Okay. I don't know why I don't see that. Can it be Himalayan or does it have to be?
Yeah.
It can.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's the actual ingredients are on the other side of the paper. I do need to edit this to make it a little better.
All right, I see it.
Yeah.
So mix it out first, right?
Yeah, I do the mother or the starter rather, then water, then salt, and then 4 cups of flour.
Okay, can I ask you a question? I'm confused because I have my whole starter that I started. I think everyone else is saying the same thing. And then I'm keeping a little bit extra in there and I can put it in the refrigerator.
I would like you guys to keep a 1/4 cup from what you reconstituted and you've been taking care of. Keep at least a 1/4 cup and then feed it before you put it back in the refrigerator.
Okay.
I mean, actually, if you fed that whole thing today and it's been fed today, you could just put it right in the refrigerator.
I did it like 3 times. Okay.
Now, Evie, I will measure when it comes to the flour and the water and the salt. So, but as you'll see, we're going to have to eyeball it when we get this going. All right, so now we do our 4 cups of flour. Extra credit if you sift your flour. I used to have a sifter, but then Sharon cleaned up.
I did sift, Doug. I sifted.
Oh, good. Extra credit. Oh, I hear Sharon yelling from the other room because I always put her under the bus because she threw away my sifter. She was like, what is this thing? All right, make sure you're counting your cup of flour. Now, it says it right in the instructions, guys, but I'm going to tell you anyway. It's going to seem like it's too dry. Okay, so we're going to start mixing this. Now, you can see on Mixcam that if you just pull it down from the side, just start combining it, eventually it's going to get combined. It's going to seem like it's too dry, but I'm going to encourage you, do not add any extra water yet, or you will be sorry. because it is going to keep mixing up and come out pretty good. Now, once we really get going, the only time we're going to have you add more is if it's ridiculously dry or it's like sticking to your fingers terribly. So just take your time. This might require a little bit of muscle. You just kind of start mixing with your dominant hand with spatula. I like these rubber kind of silicone, I think they are, spatulas. I also use this silicone mat. This is something I would recommend getting if you're going to do this, because I don't know about you, but like these countertops, I hate these things. You can't hardly tell if they're clean. So, but with this thing, I can just clean this thing off real nice and I can plop my dough right on it and I know it's safe. So
Doug, so I didn't need to buy this thing?
Oh no, that's a Dutch whisk. I heard that's good.
So I could be using this right now?
Yes.
Perfect.
It looks to me like it's going to be hard to clean, but they say it's good. Then again, everything they say that's good that I've bought when I go on Amazon, it sits in my closet. I find, as long as you got the one thing I use consistently is one of those little razor blades they make for making bread. That comes in handy because it's really sharp and thin. You'll see at the end, you'll want to cut a little line in your loaf. We'll talk about that. So once this gets going and you feel like you can't mix it anymore, that might be a good time to switch over to just one hand of mixing. Hold the bowl with one hand and mix with the other. And put your shoulder into it, like press down, fold it over, stick your fingers in there. Hopefully we washed our hands, everybody. Just mixing away, pressing down with a hard press, kind of mopping up the extra flour that's in the bowl with the dough. Our goal is to have a dough ball. Now mine's starting to form up into a semi-solid mass. Is there anybody that has like dough like sticking all over their fingers and it's like super moist and wet and just nasty? If that's the case, we probably should know at this point. And nobody's answering, so that's a good sign. Let me ask you this. Is there anybody that has still a super dry loaf that looks flaky and just like there's no moisture at all?
That's me.
Okay, let me see. Oh yeah, that looks, I mean, are you sure you got the right amount of, I always ask the same thing. I always question whether people did it right, but it looks like it needs a little bit of water.
Oh, I didn't even put water in it.
Yeah, let's go with 1.5 cups of water. Hey, Sharon, you got some friends on here if you want to say hey. Uh-huh. Look, Rachel's looking. AirPod left one. See Rachel over there on the right? Oh, everybody's mixing hard. Oh yeah, everybody's into it. Oh yeah, we got a party going on at Rachel's house. Evie's, of course, has energy for days as usual. Courtney's on there. Look, she's got the hands going. We got date night at the Hetrick house. Uh-huh. How about that? Mm-hmm. He doesn't need a nickname. It's bad enough I gotta be abused by all these. Oh yeah, I told him 2 nicknames. I told him Sourdough and Doughboy. From which one? Oh, it's Sourdough. Hey, give me my AirPod back. You've heard enough. Yeah. What about when we had our first boxer group called the Sour Bros? Problem is, it was all women and me. Maybe if if Aaron gets it going, we can have the Sour Bros. We'll start a business. All right, we're still mixing away. We got some crazy mixers going in here. I don't know about you guys, but if I was making bread by myself right now, can I get a thumbs up if you guys can hear me? Okay, good. Because this is the least interaction I've had from a group. But it's good. They're on tap. If I was making bread by myself, I would be done right now for this portion of it. So let me tell you guys something here. So you know how when you go to like a pizzeria and you see like those beautiful dough balls that are smooth and awesome, and right now you're looking at yours and it kind of looks like a brain or something? That's just, yours is going to look like that. It just needs a little time. Dough needs a little time to rest. So if I was not on Zoom right now, I would just leave this thing in the bowl, cover it with my tea towel for 30 minutes, and come back and start again. And you'll see it starts smoothing out in just about 30 to 60 minutes. But since we are learning, we have to keep going into step number, well, let's see how we're doing on step 4. How's everybody doing? Let me share my, let me look at my Zoom so I can see everybody. Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions? We feeling pretty good? Anybody want to show me their dough?
I have a question really quick.
Go ahead, Megan.
So going back to what you were saying about the lift and fold or the tuck and fold or whatever it was.
Yeah.
The problem that I have is like, okay, I'll do one tuck and fold, but then it starts rising, right? So I feel like every time I go back in to do another tuck and fold every hour, and you're saying maybe 4 or 5 tuck and folds, that cuts into the rising time, right? Like you don't start counting the rising time until you're finished with the last tuck and fold. Am I right about that?
Kind of, yes. Let's remember that this is a very much like a beginner recipe.
Okay.
So there might even be some things you might want to take note of. And when we get near the end here, because I've been learning some things and I definitely do some modifications. And I will share those with you as we move forward.
Okay.
So that's a great question. And since nobody else has questions about what we've done so far, we're going to move right into the next step, step 5, which is tug and tuck. Thank you, Megan. So tug and tuck the dough once mixed for a full rotation of the bowl. You can use your hand or a bread scraper. Tug and tuck 4 or 5 sessions before letting it sit overnight. And we'll talk about the overnight thing because that's not going to happen. It's nighttime already. You can do this every 30 or 60 minutes. Make it for your schedule. So let's first talk about tugging and tucking. I'm going to take mine out of the bowl so you can see a little bit more. So tugging is really just you tug one side like so. I'm stretching it. And then I'm going to tuck it onto itself. Then I'm going to turn it around, do the same thing again. Then I'm going to turn it 45 degrees. Or is that 90? That's 90. Then I'm going to go 180. And I'm just trying to stretch this out. You want to be stretching this gluten, making these gluten strands get nice and long. Sometimes I roll it up like a burrito like that. Sometimes I do this little technique like this where I fold it onto itself over my fingers like so. Some people use a dough scraper or their hands and they pull it around and stretch it like this. I don't really do that, although it feels kind of nice right now. So we're just kind of stretching this thing out. So what it'll look like in a bowl, I'll do another tug and tuck right now. I'll just tug and tuck. And this is going to tug way better once you let it rest for a while. Right now it's kind of stretching and pulling apart. It's going to become way more elastic.
Doug, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just curious, not so much the consistency of your dough, but like mine feels like it has chunks in it, which I only noticed the last time I made it, but then like as it rises and you continue to tug and tuck, it gets really smooth. So I'm not worried about it right now, but like, is yours chunky?
Yeah, I think there's like even the wavy surface is just it's not fully hydrated. I think the flour has to have the water hydrate into it. So
Okay.
maybe yours is just stirred a little bit less. I don't know how you really mix in the beginning, but I try to do a lot of this, like poking. One thing interesting happened once. One time we had a live party with people here, and somebody brought their kid, a 16-year-old girl, and the parents' dough was just terrible. And then the kids started working the dough, and they were like hitting it a lot for like 10, 15 minutes. And I noticed, and you'll see like bread makers doing this kind of stuff, like punching the dough. And I can even see mine changing already. Like that's definitely a good thing. So I think it's more about like breaking in those little pockets of flour down inside of there, Melissa. So, but I think over time they eventually stretch and then combine as we're stretching. So it's nothing to worry about. Okay, so now we have tugged and we tucked. But notice what it says now. It says tug and tuck 4 or 5 sessions before letting it sit overnight. Well, it's 7:42 Eastern right now. I don't know about you, but if there's an hour between each session, I'm not staying up another 5 hours before letting it sit overnight. So what we're going to do is we're going to just tug and tuck whenever. Like maybe I'll go watch a TV show. When it's done, I'm going to tug and tuck. And then maybe I'm going to, take a shower and kind of chill out, get ready for bed. And then I'm going to tug and tuck. So maybe I do 2 or 3 tug and tucks tonight. Then I'm going to take my tea towel, which we should all have a tea towel. If not, some sort of a normal or just a regular kitchen towel is good. A tea towel is really thin. You're gonna wet that in your sink. I'll put the cam on there. Here we go. We're in the sink cam. And we're gonna wring it out, and then we're just gonna cover it with a wet towel. The reason why we want a wet towel is because if you don't, there's gonna be like a crust that forms on your bread or your dough. You don't want that. So this is gonna keep it nice and moist. Okay, so then I'm just gonna leave this on the counter overnight. Now, just like Megan said, when we come back in the morning, it's gonna be like, holy cow, this thing just puffed up a little bit. And it's like now what Megan was trying to say, it feels like you made some steps forward, but then you go and you tug and tuck and it kind of pops it and it kind of goes back down. And you feel like you've lost ground or something, but don't worry, it's going to be fine. Because I'm going to teach you a trick I learned that I've been making just killer loaves. And I'm going to tell you what I've been doing. Okay, so I'm going to let it sit overnight, and then in the morning, I'm going to pick up where I left off. It's going to be kind of big. I'm going to tug it and tuck it some more. Then I'm going to go get my tower garden. I'm going to watch the news and see how high the winds are going to be for the hurricane and what time it's coming. And then I'm going to figure out my day. I'm going to move my tower gardens in. Then I'm going to squeeze another golf game in before the hurricane. And then I'm going to watch TV and enjoy the hurricane views outside. Okay. So, and I'm going to bake bread. So in between all that, I'm going to tug and tuck. You just got to work it in wherever you can. After about 4 or 5 sessions, you can get ready to do what it does not say in the instructions. So let's talk about this. Just like Megan said, now remember, somebody told me, I think Rachel did, that's Rachel's daughter, I believe, and Megan is like a real baker. So Megan knows things that aren't on this paper and that I didn't even know. And that is, when you're a real bread maker, you have what they call your final proof or your final rest or your final rise, okay? So this doesn't say it on here, but ready for a mind blower if you've been making bread. What I do now is, let's say by 12 noon tomorrow, I'm done with my tug and tuck. I'm going to now put it in the counter. Actually, I'm going to put it in my Dutch oven because this sucker is going to puff up so much. I don't even want to transfer it because it's going to be just big. I'm going to put it in the Dutch oven and sit it on the counter for like 3 hours, maybe even more, like 5 hours. And it's going to get huge. And then I'm going to bake it and it's going to be awesome. Now, one thing I've been doing, it doesn't say this in the instructions either, although I might have put them in. If you got my latest mailing, you might have the new instructions, where I do think I said that you want to score the loaf before you bake it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's go back. So we're done with our tugging and tucking. We let it sit. We let it rise. We use a wet tea towel. And we let it sit for a while. Now notice it under number 6 of the instructions, it says something. It says rule of thumb. Your dough needs 10 to 12 hours from mixing before baking. So that's a good thing to know too. Like the next time you would even be ready to bake this would be 12 hours from now. So tomorrow morning. Okay, so let's say you do stay up till midnight tonight and you're doing like 30-minute intervals and then you do overnight rise. You wake up at 6 a.m., you're ready to bake. Okay. So you can do it a variety of ways. It does get a little tangier if you wait longer. I've done a workshop on Saturday. Then I was busy on Saturday. I was busy all day Sunday because it was Sharon's birthday. And then I didn't bake it until Monday. And it was awesome still. So it works. All right. So then we get to the next part. When ready to bake, preheat your oven to 450 degrees. I do not preheat my Dutch oven. Now, some people ask, I should probably put in the instructions. I think if you're going to make bread, and trust me, once you make this, you're going to keep making bread. A Dutch oven is very, very helpful. Okay. I can't imagine doing it without a Dutch oven. If there's anybody that's having success without a Dutch oven, maybe you could unmute and tell us about it. But I think I've heard about people using pieware, like a spaghetti pot, things like that. But you can get like this one. This is like the metal lodge. It's like at 40 or 50 bucks. You can get like a 30 or 40 buck one on Amazon. Does anybody have any other comments about that if you have experience?
I don't know if it's technically a Dutch oven or if it's a cast iron. It looks like yours though. It's really tall and it has a lid and it looks like a cast iron, but then I also have like a ceramic Dutch oven that I also use.
Okay.
That have both been working.
Well, those ceramic Dutch ovens are actually cast iron, I believe, but then they cover them in ceramic coating, so they look really nice. But those can be upwards of $300. Those are really cool, like really like lifelong things you own. I just got the cheap one because I wasn't really sure. But one thing I do love about my Dutch oven, especially if you like to do social media stuff, I got the one that has handles on this big giant bottom, but it also has handles on the top. So that means I can use it upside down, which I do. And that means when it's in the oven and I want to show off my bread and I bake it for the last 15 minutes without uncovered, now I can bake it like this and I can take really good pictures right through inside the oven and stuff. So it looks really good on Instagram and stuff. Here's another thing I really love. This is like a silicone cooking thing. And it's made for bread. It's called Bread Basics. You can find them on Amazon. This comes in really handy, especially if you have a big old Dutch oven like this. Let's imagine this thing's 450 degrees and you're trying to get a bread loaf out of there before the bottom burns. I don't know how you're going to do it, but with this, I can literally just go whoop and lift it out. So make sure you use enough parchment paper, I think, so you have extra to grab it or get a fork down in there. I don't know how you do it. I do not preheat my Dutch oven just because it's 450 degrees. It looks like a branding iron to me. I don't want to have lodge food on me for the rest of my life. So I just make it like this.
Maybe.
Go ahead. Somebody have a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Doug, mine looks like it's stuck to my hands. Look at it.
Oh, wait. Hold on, I got to change my screen. Who is this talking?
So can you see me?
No.
Oh, wait, no, you can't. I got to turn my screen on. Duh.
Yeah. Okay. Oops, wait. You went on, then you went off.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so look at this.
Oh, yeah, let's add flour.
Okay, that's what my mother said. She's like,
yeah, just add a little flour. Yeah, if it's sticking to your fingers. Now, you guys that have been baking for a while.
She used to bake Easter bread, so she's like, you need more flour.
Yeah, just take some pinches or maybe, I mean, be careful, don't spill too much in there.
Yeah.
I've been experimenting with making it like a wetter bread, so it stretches really easy. So it is kind of nice. Yeah. But something to do down the road.
Okay.
All right, so I'm on the first part of preheating the oven. So I do not preheat my oven. It says, now I want you guys to ignore this step. It says tug and tuck one last time. Do not tug and tuck one last time because that's going to take all of your lift out of it right before you bake. I want mine to be all puffed up, and then I bake up, and it bakes even bigger. So do not tug and tuck one last time before transferring your dough. And like I said, I've already had mine rise on my parchment paper in my Dutch oven, and that way I don't have to move it. And before I do that final rise, I do score it and cut a line across it. And that line is nice because that kind of controls how your bread splits open as it rises. If you don't do that, it kind of cracks all over the place. It doesn't look as attractive. We're going to want to sprinkle a little water over the top of your loaf. Oh, let me simulate all this because I have this here.
I'm still
All right,
doing
so
it.
now we're in here, and then we take a little razor blade and we go and we cut a line across there. If you want to go on Instagram and learn how to make the little slits all over it, and it looks like leaves and stuff, it kind of gets cool. If you're into that sort of thing, sprinkle some water over the top of it, and then cover your Dutch oven. And we're going to bake on the center rack for 45 to 50 minutes. I've been doing 50 minutes, and then I take this off, and I go another full 10 minutes, and it's going to be huge, hopefully. And then that'll crisp it up and make it kind of get golden brown. And you can control how dark you like it to be. We like it to be pretty crunchy. Some people like it to be barely brown, just kind of golden. And then we remove it from the oven and you place on a wire rack to cool. And it's nice to have these little ears, then you can do that. And you can store this in a brown paper bag or wrap it in a cloth and keep it on the counter. You can also buy these little stacks on Amazon. These come in really handy. I just so happen to have a little bit of leftover bread from the other day, and got some decent holes and stuff in it. And this was made, I don't know, I think this is day 3, which is kind of the ending of the bread for me. Now, but if you find it like on day 3 and this is like getting a little crusty, like I don't think I want to eat it, you could literally like just take water and wipe it all over it, even on the white part, and then put it back in the oven right on the rack for like 10 minutes at 400 degrees. And it's going to be like it just came out of the oven again. So I've done that and it definitely worked. I guess it's a good time for any questions. Final questions.
Um,
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So can we try to bake it without the Dutch oven? Because I don't have one. I have one, but it's too big.
Okay. Yes. If you had a Dutch oven are you saying the bread's too big or the Dutch oven's too big?
No, my Dutch oven doesn't fit into my oven.
Okay, okay. So there, at the bottom of this instruction page, it does say tip if using a loaf pan. So you could use like a bread loaf pan. Set the timer for 20 to 25 minutes. You might need to cut this in half and do 2 loaves like that. Once the timer goes off, lightly place the piece of foil on top and bake another 20 to 25 minutes. And baguettes you could form, and they bake a total of 20 minutes. One recipe makes 2 to 3 baguettes. So yeah, you have options for that. I mean, honestly, I would probably check YouTube or something like that. Like search for a video like making sourdough in a loaf pan or something. And you might find some final tips. But I'm finding like you're going to be able to, if you monitor it, you're going to see it. It's going to start to turn brown at some point, and
Yeah.
that's when it's going to be done. I don't know about you guys. My bread's starting to get a smoother surface already as I stretch it. Yours probably is too. How about some more questions?
How do you put the seasoning? How do you make it like?
You broke up a little bit. How do you make it what?
Well, if you're doing seasonings or Italian bread, you want to make it taste like, different things that we can put in it. What do you like?
Yeah. I mean, I personally. Oh no.
did this look good, Mom?
Oh, Sharon, you logged in.
But you're all right.
Hold on, guys.
We had too much.
Can you guys still see me?
Now you
Yep.
should get out on a,
Yeah.
Hey, Sharon.
Why?
Where is my controls? Hey, Sharon.
We can still
Oh.
see
I can see you. We can still see
Okay,
you.
I see you guys. We're good. We're good. Okay. So this is a point where you could do mix-in. Like if I wanted to take some of this basil and chop it up, I can mix it in there along with some garlic and sun-dried tomatoes. I've seen people put chocolate chips in. I actually put a little everything bagel seasoning on the last loaf, just on the top of it. I don't like any of the mix-ins, honestly. But if you want to mix in, you can do that. Some people mix in now. Some people wait till like one of the last tug and tuck to do it.
Little.
I personally think like if I was doing something like bagel season, I'm sorry, basil, I would probably want to wait until a later point.
Where do you lay it out? Roll it out.
Because it's gonna get a little weird, with that basil sitting in a moist bread for 12 hours. You know what I mean? That's just my personal opinion. I don't do a lot of mix-ins, but the thing you're going to get that has recipes is going to have tons of mix-in ideas. I mean, you can do cheddar jalapeno, you could do I don't know, cinnamon raisin, all kinds of good stuff. I just like regular bread. I tend to make hummus, and Sharon likes to have olive oil with pepper and dip it in that, maybe a little bit of fresh basil. But I'm not allowed to have olive oil, so I don't get to have that. So I just make hummus, and I love it. I just have it plain, or dip it in a fresh marinara sauce or something like that. Romesque, is that how you say it? That Spanish type of sauce with roasted tomatoes and green peppers. Woo. Make you want to slap your mama. You're a Spanish mama. Okay, any other questions before I set you free into sourdough land? Go ahead and let's unmute first at Rachel's house.
Okay, I just want to recap a little bit so the rest of the night we punch it down and stretch it for about 3 more times, and about and then once in the morning and how long do we, in the morning, how long do we wait till we bake it?
Oh, you're welcome, Evie. I would do it 2 or 3 times tonight. Then tomorrow morning, start wherever you left off. And just when you hit 5 or 6 total, you're ready to let it rise. And then to be honest with you, if you're tighter on time and you wanted to be quicker and have it only 2 hours, here's a trick I didn't really show you guys. If you just put the light on your oven, and maybe your house isn't hot enough, it'll make your oven about 80 or 90 degrees, so it'll be nice and warm in there. It'll rise up quicker. So I sometimes do that, but I find it's really nice to take my time and let it rise like a good 3 or 4 hours. But depending on your timeline, I've also done it where I tug and tuck tonight. I maybe do 1 or 2 in the morning, and then I just throw it right in the oven. It's just not going to be quite as big and fluffy.
Okay.
So tonight we just do 4 or 5 more sessions of this tucking. Do we leave it in the bowl?
Yeah.
Leave it in the bowl.
You can do it totally in the bowl, and you can do your final rise in the bowl. I'll be right back. I'm going to show you guys another thing I bought from Amazon that I don't use. What do they call these? Banapins or something? It's like ew, gross. There's mold growing in it. This is like a little bread. It's made for bread, and see how there's lines on it? And there's a little green mold right there. And now I got to wash up really good. But that gives like some lines, so if it rises in this and then you flip it over, now it's going to have those circular lines. But to be honest with you, I've never seen those lines in the final loaf. So I just don't even see the point. I just let it rise in the bowl. And like I said before, my best loaves have been when I actually when it does that final rise right in the Dutch oven. So I don't have to like mess with it. And even before I do the final rise, I do a cut, which I'm going to experiment tomorrow by cutting afterward, and hopefully it doesn't pop it. I'm afraid it's going to pop like a balloon or something.
So we cut this loaf in half because we don't use this big one loaf, right? Or do we?
That's one loaf.
That's one loaf. So okay. So if we don't have a Dutch oven, what do we have to look on Instagram to figure out or whatever?
Well, no, you could do it on maybe, do you have anything covered? See, what we're trying to accomplish with sourdough is we want it to steam. That's why, remember, we sprinkle some water on it and then we put it in a Dutch oven. Now you got the steam trapped in there. So you want to recreate that somehow. If you go on YouTube, they're going to have all these contraptions of like, okay, see ya. They're going to have these contraptions where you put like lava rocks with water in a pan. It's like, who has time for all this? So I think anything you can do to have it covered, like maybe a Pyrex or a pasta pot or anything like that, or just form them into baguettes or make it in a loaf pan as it says in the instructions at the bottom. So just you have to kind of find a solution, and it's going to be fine. It's going to work. It's just
so it doesn't need to be covered, or it does.
Well, it's a baguette is not going to be covered, and a loaf pan is not going to be covered. So it's just a different way. It's going to come out different. What this recipe is designed to do is to make one of those rustic kind of loaves.
Okay.
Those round rustic loaves. And I think as a beginner, you should just make bread. And if you find you like, heck yeah, I want to do this all the time, it's awesome, then you should get your Dutch oven.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So I have a question, but I was also going to add on to what you just said. That first time Jen and I made it, we were at the beach. So we were like, well, whatever we have is what we're baking it in. And we split it, and like, you're in someone else's beach house. And she's like, this can go in the oven. I'm like, that can't go in the oven. So we had to find whatever pans we could and then try to cover it. So we did make 2 loaves, and I think we covered them with a cookie sheet.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering if you let it rise in this, and then you flip this over and put it on a cookie sheet, but then use this to cover the bread again. Maybe that would work, or would this be too small? I don't know.
I'm never sure what's going to burn in the oven.
Yeah.
I actually have a question. If it's not a long answer and you can tell me separate, I actually was interested in trying a pizza, but maybe that's not for this workshop.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. I can tell it in like 10 seconds. But I will tell you guys this putting a little tray, a baking tray on a one level below the regular level you're going to be cooking on, keeps it from burning on the bottom. So that's a really good tip. So what I do for pizza is I have Melissa, the Pampered Chef ones are awesome. I know you have a friend that does those parties all the time. So I have like, I don't know if this is, yeah, this Pampered Chef, 15 inches. I have 2 of these. And I find that this loaf, once it rises, will split in half and will stretch into 2 pizzas. So then I just start putting it on here and then start rolling it and hammering it down. Then eventually, start doing this thing where it's stretching, and then try to do a couple of tosses and not hit the ceiling and just have fun with it and just keep stretching it out. But have you ever stretched the pizza before?
Yeah, I've bought dough before. I just wasn't sure if that's all.
Yeah, it's just when you start stretching pizza, like the middle stretches before the end. So that's why you want to go around and like get the end. Okay. I try and get the edge getting really big first. And then I start doing more of the middle. Then eventually you're doing the whole flippy.
Nice. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, I know if you're a new first timer, you're terrified right now, but it's going to be okay. I promise. It's going to be totally fine. And what's the worst thing that can happen? It's only bread, and it's going to work. It's going to work. Any final questions?
Okay, so just to clarify, I'm going to do this 3 or 4 more times tonight. Yep. Drape it in the wet cloth, and then in the morning do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And then 4 hours from there, I can bake it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you've been getting reminders from me, I think at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, you'll get the next reminder. I should have sent it out at 8. But it'll have recipes, it'll have ideas, all kinds of good stuff. It'll have a group you can go into. And that's the best place to it's a great community. Show off your bread in there. Hey, first timer, you can thank me if you want. That's cool. But also the message service I've been texting you from, feel free to ask me questions. I know you're going to be freaking out. Don't worry, I'm in a hurricane. I got nothing else to do. Just ask me questions. It'll be fine.
Okay.
And then send me a picture. I want to see what it looks like, guys. All right. All right. Well, have fun.
Thank you so much.
Have a great evening.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Go get them.
Hey, Doug, I have a really quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
The mother, we just put it in the refrigerator if we want to not use it for